started collecting the data, I started registering. I would put the date and then whether I was experiencing pain, and then I realized very quickly that I was forgetting to look up the barometric pressure readings on the days that I was not experiencing pain, because it was pain that was reminding me to look up barometric pressure. So I'd be in the car, I'd be like, dang, everything hurts. My elbows, my knees, my spine, everything up. Like I'm in pain today. It's really agonizing. What is going on? And so then I'd be like, oh, you know what? I should look up the barometric pressure. But then on the off days, I wouldn't bother thinking about that. So you see, I have June, some days in June, and then I forgot about it over the summer because I wasn't in the car, and also for whatever reason, I probably should have researched this because there's probably something to it. The summer months I don't experience pain as much, probably because I'm not standing in front of the classroom as often. I mean, during July, actually, I stand in front of a class more so because when you teach a summer class, it's basically what we're doing here, just 4 days a week instead of 1 day a week. So that's a lot. And I usually teach a couple of classes in July. So it's a solid 8 hours, generally 6 to 8 hours of just straight lecture. All right. So July tends to be a tough month, but I think, based on personal experience, that if I took July and transposed it over, let's say, January, that I would be hospitalized at the end of the month. Like that's the level of pain that I would be in, right? Because if you take all the environmental considerations of like what January does to me, and then add to it the fact that I'm standing for 6 to 8 hours, lecturing. So even though I'll sit down from time to time, it's still taking a toll. It would impact things. So there's a little bit of context behind the data, and the reason I talk about this is not so you know about my anatomy, but so that you can start thinking about how to assign context to your own data sets. All right, because numbers are numbers, and like you think about the test. I gave you a data set. I even forget what it was. Was it hockey this time? I forget. It was a data set that was either relatable or not relatable, depending on whether or not you were interested in that particular topic. Right? Some people are, some people aren't. Right? And so, if that's the case, then some people derive more meaning, even during a test. Some people derive more meaning from a data set than others. Right? But when you collect your own data, it's always going to be meaningful to you. Right? But you got to start thinking about how to assign context to this. So this is my data set, and so I'll just go through the process of creating a graph and analyzing that graph. So I'm signing in with Google, and then I'm going to, it's a little waffle here. GeoGebra Classic is the way to go. Went through that last time, right, when it blacked out. So hopefully that's not going to be an ongoing thing. Okay. Got a little nervous. All right, so I'm going to start typing in my data points. Now, lovely. Well, I'm going to start typing them in and see what happens. So my data points were just raw numbers. So you would say, okay, well, didn't you have something, comma, something? Well, for me, it's day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and so on. All right. So that could be the same for you, right? The date could be useful, but like numerically, what does June 14th mean? Like unless you actually assign it as an integer value, it's not going to be overly meaningful. So if you wanted to actually give it a day throughout the year, you'd actually have to figure out what June 14th is relative to January 1st. So what number day is it? Is it day 182? So like that just seems problematic. So for my data set, I'm just going to type in 1, comma, that's not a comma, 29.3, and just hope this starts working. All right, well, okay, so it accepted a data point, so it's just fritzing out on me, but I'm just gonna go for it, save it, and then if it doesn't work out, then at least I'll have it saved, and then I'll switch to a different browser and hope for the best. All right, or maybe I'll just whip out the old iPad because it's so strange. I mean, sorry, I'm talking and trying to do this at the same time, so. But budgets being what they are, my sense is that they had enough money to replace all the computers with Surfaces, with these beautiful computers. They did not have enough money in the budget to enable all the software that comes with it. So maybe next year. But my tech, everything's enabled because I pay for a lot of that myself. And then hope it's all tax deductible at the end of the year. I've had some awkward conversations with the wife at home because of that. You bought what? Why? Well, I needed it for work. Couldn't you have gotten it from work? Yeah, but I would have had to wait. And I wanted it today. Are you going to get reimbursed? No. Can we write it off? I certainly hope so. When will we find out? When we do our taxes. It's usually just apps, though. And what did she say it was for today? I'll just throw that in there. That's weird. She thought I said Eleanor just now. What is the barometric pressure today?
I can't get the barometric pressure for the entire day, but currently it's 30.23 inches of mercury.
30.23. Okay, so that's pretty common. All right, so I think I might be onto something there. And so part of the journey here, because I mean the reality is you're going to leave this class and you're either going to use this material conceptually in your lives moving forward or you're not. I doubt that you're going to be sitting down computing standard deviations and means for everything you can think of, but the underlying concepts are going to come into play. And at least you'll have the ability to analyze some data. And so what I would be looking for after this, so I can't manipulate the atmosphere outside, but maybe I can manipulate the atmosphere inside. All right? I mean, I'm not talking about like regulating the cabin pressure of like an aircraft. Like I can't do that in my apartment. Maybe I can, I don't know. But I'd have to have some serious like seals, like weather strippings and stuff like that. But maybe there's something that I can do to the humidity level. If there's a relationship between humidity level and air pressure, maybe there's something I can do there. All right. I do know that my CPAP machine is running out of water in the middle of the night every night now. All right, and for those who don't know, the CPAP is just basically it forces air into your mouth and nose so that you can breathe properly throughout the sleeping hours. And so it's also part humidifier because part of the thing that keeps airways functioning properly is having it at the right moisture level. Right? And so there's a little basin that you put water in, and it humidifies the air. And so what it does is it automatically senses, based off of the air that it's pulling in from the surrounding environment, how much humidity it needs to add in order to get to the proper levels. And so the fact that my tank is running dry in the middle of the night means that the air is incredibly dry. All right, so if that's the case, then maybe lack of humidity is contributing in some capacity. So I could look into that. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I mean, but I would imagine that, like in a science class, I do remember something called STP, standard temperature and pressure, like whatever that standard level is. I mean, that tells me that there has to be some kind of relationship between temperature and pressure. Maybe humidity comes into play there. Maybe all I have to do is make sure the temperature is at a certain level, and I can impact air pressure. Right. So these are some things that I can do in my local environment. And if not, then maybe I can find a place in the world that has barometric pressures that are more suitable to my needs, like Bali, which would justify me moving there and living there for the rest of my life, happily. So yeah, there's lots of things here. So there's my data. Eventually, it's going to black out repeatedly, but we got a glimpse of it before it blacked out. It seemed like maybe we could pass a line through it, but it also seemed like maybe it had like a little bit of a bow to it, right? So one thing I could do is a fit line with my list of points A through I. So this is the procedural part. So if you're struggling with this, then this is all you really need to do. So I collected my own data. Now, you might look at this and say, well, couldn't I just make up a data set? And I would say, yeah, sure. I'll tell you right now, there's some data sets I can look at and say, that's a BS data set. And then there's some other data sets I look at and I say, well, I wouldn't know a good data set, a fictitious data set from a real data set. So you could probably fool me. And in all honesty, I'm not looking to, what's the point? I'm not looking to say, oh, is this a fake data set? Did you really collect driving times from from home to work? I'm not going to get into that because really it's, who are you cheating? You're cheating yourself if you don't actually do it. But I would think that this part of the assignment anyway is engaging enough that you would want to do it just for your own purpose, just out of curiosity. All right. So from here, I'm getting an equation that tells me something. All right. It tells me what it's trending toward. Now, this started in June and it's progressing throughout the year. Now, just off the top of my head, completely by accident, I didn't plan this. June is when the months, like July is probably the hottest month, right? But June is when it's pretty warm. And then it gets cooler after June, July period of time. All right. So this could be telling me the relationship between temperature and pressure, because I chose a period of time throughout the year where the temperatures are going to steadily start decreasing. And so what's happening to the pressures during that period of time? So this could tell me that I'm destined for a little bit more pain, but it's also telling me that perhaps if the pain is going to be worse in the cooler months, then I would have to just take steps to make sure that my body warmth is as comfortable as it could be. So R square, my list of points again, in those curly or squiggly brackets, then comma, whatever the function was. When I typed fit line, it called it function f. So I'm typing in f. And it'll tell me what the relationship is. And so this is it's good. There's a relationship, but it's not as good as it could be. So then maybe I'll try a fit poly. So basically try the ones that you had to try for the bun in the oven one. All right. So, sorry. A little hack here. Instead of typing, because I know the most annoying part of this is retyping the A through I repeatedly. So click on the three little dots and hit duplicate. Change your line to poly. Now, for poly, though, you have to indicate the degree of the polynomial function. All right. So this goes back to algebra. Polynomial functions are like your x squared plus, quadratics, cubics, things like that. So power of 2, power of 3, power of 4. You can make it as high as you want. Power of 2 is usually a pretty good place to go. So I just do a 2. So if you wanted to just stick with a power of 2, you could hit enter. It gives me the equation. Then I do a duplicate on the r square that I did for the line, the fit line, and I change f to g. You don't need the of x part. And so now I have a 0.96. All right, so that's even better. All right. So then maybe I'll try the fit exponential. I don't know that I'm gonna beat. Sorry, I don't know that I'm gonna beat the 0.96 for any other function that I select, but it's worth a shot. So duplicate the fit line, change the line to exp. See if it's an exponential relationship. Got my list of. Oh, dang it. So if you do that, if you hit enter at the wrong time, just Control Z it, and then just start. Well, just wipe it all out and just do it again. So duplicate exp, go to the end, then hit enter. Because for whatever reason, it wants to, when you hit enter, it wants to call up from the drop down that function and make you type it in again. It's a little light on the common sense. So then r square, duplicate it. This time it's pointing to function h. I'm just looking for the winner here. All right, 0.72, so no good. And in fact, I'll just turn off the ones that I know aren't the best. So far it's the poly that's going to win. And then the last one that we talked about was the sine regression. So fit line, duplicate that again. Make that a SIN.
Which one is this again?
The sine function. So it's a
For sino. Stands for the sino.
sine of x. Yeah, the oscillating function, yeah. And so this one says undefined. I'll just do that again just to make sure, because you never know, I might have just typed it in wrong. But if I type in fit sine, list of points, I typed it in correctly, hit enter. Okay, delete the extra thing that just came up for some reason. Okay, so just wipe it out and do it again because apparently, oh, that's just so good. I love when that happens. Now I'm having, it's called the snowball effect. It's like you make one mistake and then you get so frazzled and aggravated that you just can't stop yourself from repeatedly making unique mistakes after the fact to compound it. All right, well, it's kind of along those lines, except for me it's just flat out aggravation. This black bar thing is killing me. And again, it has nothing to do with GeoGebra. GeoGebra's fine. It's these computers. Can't handle having more than like 2 browsers open at any one time. That's so awesome. And so, well, I'll kill these anyway. So it says P undefined. Honestly, I have no idea what the P means, but if it comes back with undefined, what it's telling you is that the function that you chose is not appropriate for the data set. Right? So it's saying that there's no reason to think a sine function would work here. Right? Based on the data points, when you plot them, if you don't see a discernible up-down pattern to it, then you could probably disregard the sine function as an option. But sometimes, even though the data points are tightly grouped together, sometimes there's a minute fluctuation vertically, but enough that it really is a meaningful one. Like, for example, I did a problem. Oh, well, that's a typo. It's supposed to be in this class. Well, I did it in my calculus, pre-calc. I did it in every other class. It should have been in this class too. It involved a trig function relating to a person inhaling and exhaling, right? But the person was hyperventilating, right? And so the amount of air that they're pulling in and exhaling was very minor, but the rate at which they were inhaling and exhaling was very rapid. All right, so if at first glance it would look like almost, if you just plotted the points, it would look like a horizontal line, but you had very minute fluctuations. It was going up and down, but at such a minute level that you couldn't see it with the naked eye, but a regression would have picked it up. And when you think about it, if a person breathing, it does have a cyclical pattern, an up-down relationship, and in and out. All right, so it would be appropriate, it's just you wouldn't necessarily pick it up. So it's worth giving it a shot, even though it might look linear. But here, it's the closest we're going to get to a mathematical justification that, you know, it's visually it didn't look like it, mathematically it's justified. You know, it's not going to be a sign regression, but it was worth a shot. All right, but for me, that's great news. That means that I'm not looking at too much fluctuation in the barometric pressure when I'm experiencing pain. All right, so I can almost look at it as more of a constant, or something that's strictly a relationship between temperature, time, temperature, and pressure. All right, so I have all this information. If only I could see the graph. All right, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit. Lovely. The wish came true. But I'm going to save it before anything crazy happens. Can barometric pressure. Save that. And then I'll just bring my graph in, take a look. And you could see, I mean, the quadratic seems to be pretty spot on. All right, so as time increases, barometric pressure of days that I'm experiencing pain seems to be increasing. All right, and since time and temperature are related inversely, so that means that as time increases, temperature is decreasing. What I would conclude from this is that as the temperature is decreasing, my pain level based on the barometric pressure is going to, or at least the barometric pressure, forget about the pain level because these are all related to pain, but the barometric pressure is going to increase. So there's an inverse relationship there. All right, so that's kind of interesting to know. Now, it's also telling me, based off of this relationship, just for these 9 data points, that more data points are needed. I need to collect a lot more data because, I mean, is it going to decrease at some point? All right, so this is barometric pressure. I mean, I don't know what is like normal for humans to like live, but I do know that there's a certain amount of pressure that's required to just keep our bodies together. Like otherwise the molecules would all start flowing apart, right? So there's definitely a shelf life to this function, or a domain where it stops becoming meaningful, but I am getting a relationship, and at least it's a start. And I always say, maybe not in here yet, but I will always say from here on out, that statistics usually asks more questions than it answers. So this is the beginning of an investigation, not the end of it, right? Very rarely, I mean, even in an article that you would read in a journal, like you read the article and you're like, yeah, they have what is framed as a conclusion statement, but it doesn't seem like they concluded really anything, right? This drug may help with that. It may do this. It seems like it's helping towards that. Human trials are giving us hope that it'll do this, but you know, it's not guaranteed. And then you see the commercials on TV that say, you know, take this drug, it'll make you feel better, except, you know, it might also kill you, right? So everything's an ongoing study, and so this is no different, right? So pretty interesting stuff, but I would imagine that your stuff, your data set is going to be even more interesting because it's going to be data that you collected, all right? So it'll be interesting to you, and if it's interesting to you, it'll be interesting to me. All right, so I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with. Now I'm looking forward to remembering how to stop this video. Window Shift Q.